computer. So here we go.
Hey everyone, it's Merja and Amelia here. Welcome to Real Conversations with INFJs and INFPs, Season 1, Episode 1.
Yay! Merja is the author and facilitator of the Integration Mentor Program, an MBTI certified practitioner and personality profiler, founder of the Sumiloff Academy of Human Integration and the INFX Project. She has also written 2 best-selling courses called the For People Within, which is an extension on Jungian work, and the INFX Unveiled, INFX Deep Dive, and INFX Mastermind, which all shows INFJs and INFPs how to live a more authentic and productive life. When she is not busy with work, which seems to be all the time, she is spending time with her partner, Peter, and their collection of beloved dogs and horses.
And Amelia here is a mentor who helps people become free of emotional abuse. With her work, clients finally move on from what is holding them back. Now, she's a fully qualified integration mentor and loves helping clients transforming their lives. And when she's not working, she's looking at her own personal development, spending time in her garden, reading, cooking, and walking her big doggo, whom we all love. Hey, Amelia, it's good to be here with you today.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you
is
for
going to
sharing
be fun.
this time. Yeah. So today we're discussing the INFJ experience of 2020. How's that? How is that?
It's a banger.
It's been a big year. So let's have a look at the kind of the big picture. Let's take a big step back for a second and look at what 2020 has been like. So what has it been like for you so far?
So, Amelia here, I am an INFJ, just to get that out on the record. For me, this has been an interesting year because you really get to see how people react when everyone is under this uncertainty, and this virus is affecting literally everyone. And it's also causing people to really show what is how healthy or unhealthy they are, because it's a very triggering year. So that has been interesting. It's been interesting to see how people react to things. It's been interesting to see all the political stuff as I live here in the United States with things just kind of boiling under the surface. And trying to be okay with the lack of empathy some people are showing has been challenging for me personally.
Yeah, and I want to really talk about that piece. Maybe we can do a specific episode on that, because that's a fantastic topic for a lot of INFJs and INFPs, because we are, a lot of us, empaths or very empathetic, like highly empathetic people. And feeling faculty is one of our top capacities in life. So it's very important that we'll talk about that one for sure in more detail.
Absolutely. So how has it been like for you so far?
2020 has been a strange year. It's odd to hold 2 different points of views, or 2 different almost realities simultaneously, where I'm coming into 2020 from a year and a half of PTSD. Then we had 4 deaths last year. Then we had the bushfires here in Australia, and there was 1.2 million acres that burned around our home. I still can't believe it. Every time I say it, it's unbelievable. And then we had floods, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So it's been a really big 3 years altogether. So coming into 2020, actually things slowed down for me.
Mm.
So where we live in the Hunter Valley in Australia. So this is one of the biggest wine producing regions in Australia. But where we live, after those fires were finished, everything almost felt like, oh, easy, piece of cake,
Mm.
Wear a mask, no worries, no problem. Oh, stay at home. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll just go into town for supplies once a week, something like that. Because we wouldn't have gone into town every day anyway. So, it was almost like things just calmed down. And as I look back at 2020, personally, I rewrote, re-recorded, and re-released the 4 People Within course, which of course is an extension of Jungian work. I got the official Myers-Briggs MBTI qualifications, and I am in the process of getting my bushfire fighting qualifications, and that's just a week away. So it's been a really big year of kind of leaping forward in different ways, whilst trying to somehow survive in a capsule and not get overwhelmed with everything that's going on around the world, because there's so much going on.
Yeah, there is so much going on. And you made an interesting point, because you said that it's slowed down for everyone. Yeah, that's absolutely right, because everyone is having to be less active, do less things. Like, I took a flight out to Utah in October, and it was, honestly, as an introvert, it was great. All the middle seats were not taken, so that was wonderful. There was only 10 people standing in line. I flew Southwest rather than like 40 people.
Yeah.
It was super easy. It was quiet. I was like, this is wonderful. I would love to fly like this all the time, which is not financially going to help the airlines full time, and I understand that, but I was just like, this is really nice. And it's nice to see that there can be beauties despite having a hard time, because some people assume that everyone's having a hard time and this is all a hard time and this is going to be terrible and it's going to last forever and everyone's lives are going to be hurt. And that is the case for some people. But it's also like, if you can get your mind to look at what's going right and look at your mind to look for opportunities, there are opportunities out there.
There are always opportunities. You're so right. Every struggle has opportunities embedded in them, and the reconciliation of the losses that we've had, we have to yes, take it seriously. Obviously, it doesn't get much more serious than this. We need to allow ourselves grace as we're moving through the pain that the pandemic has caused, the financial challenges, the hardship that people are going through, the incredible wave of the Black Lives Matter, really against police brutality and inequality. There's so much pain associated with all of it, and we must respect ourselves enough to really allow ourselves to grieve, not just as individuals, or who have lost a loved one, or who has lost somebody to violence, or to racism, or lost our income or our livelihoods. That is also important. But in my mind too, grieving the old way of humans relating to one another. So more finding of new ways forward come from appreciating the grieving process. At least that's my personal experience. If we don't allow ourselves to really grieve and go into the mud with it, it can be difficult to move forward and to see the opportunities that are coming from the hard times. So
Yes.
yeah. What are the kind of the positives that you've experienced in your 2020?
2020 was a good year because I got a lot of clarification of what has been like a missing piece for what has been wrong with me. Like I've been fighting, like I've known something wasn't working, know something wasn't working, and I've been getting obsessed with this inner parenting work and for 2 years, and I was getting traction, but this year finally the giant puzzle piece fell down, which was so helpful to me, and I'm so grateful for that. And it was challenging and very hard to work through, but it is the things you learn about your past that you're uncomfortable are absolutely able to be worked through if you have the right tools to do it. And it does not have to be something that defines your life, something that is constantly going to keep you down and constantly going to be a weight on you. There are options out there to do that. So that's been a huge thing for me, and I'm still working through some of it. And this stuff is it's not like it's checked off the box. Like, whoosh, I'm done with that.
Yeah. I mean, that would be nice.
Part of us,
if that was the case,
wants it to be like that.
Our 10-year-old inner children. So, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about with this 4 people within concept, you can head on over to mariosomelovecom and grab the 4 people within ebook. It's free. It comes with a 6-session book club that you can do your personal development through that. So you can go and check that out. We should do an episode though on the 4 people within for both INFJs and INFPs, I think. What do you reckon?
Yep.
Yeah.
The words that they describe in that, it's a great idea. And then another thing that's been really good for me this year is I actually was bartending and COVID hit, and I got laid off before the the government was going to subsidize this.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. I was in shock. I was terrified. I was nervous, and I was like, okay, there's something good that's going to come out of this. I don't know what it is yet. It's something good. And I ended up having a wonderful financial year. And it's allowed me to do a lot of other things and quit bartending and able to really focus on my mentoring career, which has been wonderful.
Yeah.
So COVID for me has actually been a good year. And there's actually several examples of people who I know who've taken COVID and made it something positive. And built businesses during COVID, which is also another example of, it's like, okay, it is possible out there if you can have the mindset for it and if you have like the wherewithal to see it.
Absolutely. I remember in 2008, it was 2008, the global financial crisis, and it really hit Ireland in 2009. And I'd just gotten divorced. And so I went from a 2-income, family into a 1-income family, and supporting my business, my horses, my lifestyle, everything. And I was living in Ireland at the time, and it really hit Ireland very hard. Like Ireland was one of those European countries that nearly went under from the whole situation. And, and back then I was working with a classical and orthopedic massage and pain management. And people were kind of saying to me, oh, you're going to hit so hard because, the industry, like you're in this, it's a luxury to get a massage. And I just said to them, have you ever gotten a massage from me? Because obviously orthopedic massage, anybody who knows anything about body work knows orthopedic massage isn't something that you come in so that you can relax. That's not how it's going to work. So I actually I pivoted my business and grew it 300% in just a few weeks, like over 3 months. And that it wasn't expected, but the thing is that we can expect things to go well, or we can expect things to go poorly. And this is not to say that those of us who have lost people due to COVID or police brutality or any of that,
Yeah.
that's in any way diminished. If
Yeah.
anything, when we go through these losses, and those of you who have lost somebody, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When we go through these losses, and eventually when we get to the other side, we can continue to hold that person close to us in our hearts and say to them, I'm dedicating my life's work partly to you, to your memory. So it's not, that can also drive us a lot when we are highly emotional creatures, INFJs and INFPs. So we can really do something in the memory of somebody that was really close to us. So even that, as horrendous a thing as it is, it's like they continue to give us gifts even when they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are some of the kind of positives that can come out of these situations, even if it doesn't seem like that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, it took 10 minutes for somebody to cry, so that's good.
Highly emotional check. I think you also made a good point too, Merja, because so as an INFJ, I've struggled with for a long time, and I still struggle with this. It's like I take what other people are saying about the experience and I assume that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's a great example of, and what I did earlier this year with the COVID thing, is that's a great example of continuing to not allow other people to define our existence. It's like, that's what they think. That's what this person thinks. It's not what you have to do. And I think this is a hard thing for INFJs and INFPs, because it's like, you are separate from other people, even though it might not feel like it.
Yeah. And this is the whole point of we're highly intuitive people.
Yeah.
INFJs, intuition, adult self, the main part of us is intuition. INFPs, the inner parent, the second most rehearsed part of the INFPs.
Yep.
Sometimes we don't feel like we belong to ourselves, and we're so much at the mercy of what somebody says or how they behave or what they do or whatever. And it was so interesting with the inner parenting work, and in particular with the 4 people within, it was so interesting to observe myself yesterday. I was online, I was on a day off, so I was like, Facebook, okay. and I went to our local fire brigade's page, and they had done a hazard reduction burn with somebody locally. And they'd gone in, because this is a voluntary organ. We do this voluntarily. We don't get paid for this stuff, right? These people, the voluntary firefighters, had gone to do a hazard reduction burn on somebody else's property. They were there for hours and hours and hours doing a dangerous job. And then somebody makes a point of, trying to assert themselves above the authority of the local fire brigade, just because they had an opinion. And I was reading this stuff, and I was just looking at it going like, yeah. And I just made a comment. And said, thank you, local RFS. Thank you so much for doing this often thankless job.
Yeah.
You're keeping us safe from things like what happened last year. Thank you so much. And I got a message from the brigade saying, thank you so much for your positive comment. We really needed to hear it today.
Aww.
And yeah, so it's this whole thing, like we're so intuitive that I could see where that other person was coming from. They weren't happy with what was being done, but then it wasn't really there, like, why were they commenting on it? If they want to change something, they should go to the brigade, join the brigade, and start fighting these fires. You know what I mean? Like, put up or shut up.
Yeah.
It's a real Australian thing to say. Put up or shut up. So
that's wonderful.
yeah, so we don't have to accept. We don't have to accept what people say. But we don't know that necessarily until we do that work, until we kind of go into the inner children and say, hey, look, you know, we're in charge of our lives.
And the other thing is, like, other people can react how they want, and that's not a reflection of you. And also, you are lovable as you are. And if this person's having a hard time, then that's on them. Like, detaching from those emotions.
Yes, there are times that we are assholes. No doubt about that. So let's not pretend like we aren't. We are.
I'm never an asshole. That's a joke. That's a joke.
But so in those cases, and you said, you know, we're lovable. We are lovable even when we are assholes. That's the whole, you know, it's okay to have a hard time. And it's okay for us, when other people are having a hard time, to take what they're saying seriously without taking it personally. So, you know, it's okay. We don't all have to get into these power struggles all the time. We can just chill out, focus on our own stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
What do you think? I'm really curious about, let's just say that, you know, you were speaking to your 20-year-old self who had this chaotic 2020. What would you say to them?
Amelia, I'm 32, so that would have been 12 years ago. I would have been in college, I believe. Junior year of college. I think if I was having a really rough year, on top of COVID, I think I would tell myself that you are incredibly strong, that there are gifts in this, and to just keep going, because there is the help that you are desperately wanting for. You just can't see it yet.
Yeah, beautiful. My 20-year-old self is a little bit further back than yours. but if I was 20 and you were 20, I would have got your 20-year-old, you know, to tell me, your current person to tell my 20-year-old that. That was perfect.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid you would have been only a bub back then, so.
I would have been so tunnel focused on college and what I had going on in college. I wouldn't have been focused on that.
So shall we change some gears a little bit? Let's talk about our minds a little bit, because it can be this was something we talked about before, that maybe you had some questions around the mind and how we can how we can really explore our minds, because this is important. We are the great unknown.
And that's a whole other topic there. But one thing that I find interesting as introverts is that the part that we are most comfortable with is our inner world and our thoughts and our mind. And that means that means that this part of us will never really be seen to the outside world, because it's primarily in our head, unless we want to say it. So I find this really interesting, because one thing I'm trying to talk about more is, how do I talk about what's going on inside my mind, because it's actually clicking and working. So can you describe the landscape of your inner world a little bit?
I cannot. No. Yeah, so my mind to me seems like a library that sits on top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's a library full of information that all relates to each other,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where I can basically draw constellations, any kind of constellations that, you know, I can think of. This is actually something that one of our colleague, Elena Nola, talked about, the constellations. Like you can have one constellation that has certain kind of points of reference or pieces of information that attach to it, and then you can have another constellation that has whole other different set of information and points of reference, but those don't actually cancel each other out, so you can have a as well. So anything can relate to anything else, which can be a little bit tricky when you're, you know, busy in your mind. So somebody says one thing, you know, they start a conversation, they say a sentence, and immediately I make at least 5 connections to that same sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen us, we've been on calls a lot of calls in the last couple of years together, and you've seen me say things like, there are 5 things that I'm trying to say at the same time, I can't say them all, so let me just like slow down and try to bring that together. But it's almost like my mind working is most easily seen when I'm in, you know, using it in relation with other people, in relation to other people. So when I'm with other people, just getting in that information and then making the connections and then bringing the connections out is my jam. That's where I live. What about you?
Nice.
What's your mind like?
Nice. I like that constellation idea. I don't know if I could describe mine as that. I feel like my mind really works as I would describe it. It's like when I get really excited about something, or I'm trying to learn about something else, or I've made this other realization about myself, I think that's when my mind is at its best, because I kind of get this tunnel vision focused on this topic, and I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean? How can I connect this to this? How does this relate to all this stuff? What does it look like when it's flipped? And then why is this? And then it kind of starts starts morphing and becomes like its own object. Its own object, and I'm just so tunnel focused on this thing that a lot of my thoughts and energy goes to this, expanding this thought and then connecting it to all the other points within my intuition. So it's kind of like, and then I kind of go around when I'm healthy and looking at which points of these in my intuition are correct. So which parts of these are wrong, because these are our inner worlds, so they're subjective to us, so they're not necessarily right as to what's going on in the outside world. So it's like, okay, which of these aren't working anymore, or which of these are outdated, or which of these are biased, and how can this be replaced? So it's kind of like a bunch of elves, kind of like the Gringotts in Harry Potter, where there's just a bunch of working elves shifting and moving things around, and like moving all of these points, and then like, all right, closing one account, opening one account, and then another account gets bigger. And you open it up and there's gold in there, and you open it up and there's nothing, and then one account's throwing a fit, and then, you know, then the train's derailed. And so
off to the bushes we go.
So what are things like, and like, what are the voices that you say, or what are the voices that you hear inside your mind when things are not going well for you?
When they are not going well.
When they are not going well, like life is tough, you're throwing a fit. What are these thoughts?
I was having such a hard time yesterday, and this will tell you everything you need to know about my inner voices, my negative inner voices. I was having a really hard time yesterday. I have a young horse who is very highly spirited, and she was in a herd of horses with her mother until she was 6, until I got her. So she has not been really domesticated in a sense of everyday like human interaction and stuff. Like she's just used to being with other horses, and it's very old to have that until you're 6, because they're a full grown horse. They weigh over half a ton, so it's, you know, it's a serious situation. And earlier this year, so I've been teaching her to be under the saddle, and she was going really well and everything, and then I asked her to move, and she had a freak out and bucked, and I fell off. And so this is a couple of months ago. Anyway, I then subsequently did the same thing. You know, I got on her, but I didn't ask her to move. I just got on her, and I left it, you know, it went well. I left it at a good note, and then went on holiday. So you give young horses some holidays so that they can think about, you know, themselves, or, you know, what's going on, and they can kind of get back into themselves and grow and get the wisdom and the I don't know how much introspection there actually is with horses, but that they can really just settle into this new reality that they're learning new things and so on. But ever since we've been back from holidays, and anytime I put a saddle on her, she just freaks out, even just the saddle. So there's no way I'm riding her, obviously, because if she's, you know, having such a hard time with the saddle. So there could be any number of things that are wrong with that situation that I don't know about. But my inner dialogue in those situations is, I have let this horse down somehow, and I don't know how, and so I can't do anything about it. So I have caused this damage. That's how it, you know, it's always the INFJ kind of, I'm taking responsibility of how the situation has gone. I don't know. There could be any number of things that have happened while we were away. It's possible that somebody's gone into the paddock and put a saddle on her and tried to ride her or whatever. I don't know. Shouldn't be. And I don't think that it's actually happened. But there could be any number of things that could have happened that made her go backwards so far. So when I'm struggling, that's what I do. I kind of go like, I'm responsible for this. I'm not good enough. You know, I've made this worse for this other person or a horse or a dog or whatever. So I'm responsible for this, and I have to fix it. What about you? What's your go-to place?
I think it depends on which of these voices, because the different inner children have different voices. So when my 10-year-old's involved, it's just like, fuck it. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
You know, let's
and just again, sorry, away. I just want to mention, if you don't know what we're talking about, again, go to mariosomelovecom, grab that for people within ebook, so you know, so this isn't just some jargon we're throwing at you. There is a way you can find out what, you know, what we're talking about. Please continue, Amelia.
Yeah, and if you hear this voice of like, this person, I'm just done, or this is just a quick, that's that 10-year-old inner child of yours for INFJs. It's
the quick, infamous door slam.
Quick black or white decisions. Yep. So that's one way I know that I'm triggered, is my 10-year-old's out and starts getting grumpy as well. I could have done better. This gets pretty grumpy. My inner child, my 3-year-old inner child, which is a very sweet part of me, it's just very sweet and soft, and it's very much like, oh, that's that voice of, oh, I did something wrong, this must be me. Kind of the fear of people not liking you or abandonment or whatnot. So that's what it really boils down to. And I am quite lucky, because through this work you can identify, okay, there's that part of me, what does this part of me need? Or, oh, there's that 3-year-old inner child, what does that part of me need? Versus these parts when you don't have inner parenting, where you're not meeting your own needs, they are just left to get their needs met somehow, and it's either going to be like a door slam, which is a great example, or the 3-year-old often soothes itself with food or sex or drugs or alcohol,
substance,
or cheese, or you know, all of that good stuff. So that's what it sounds like for me.
Yeah, right. Well, you said you're lucky that you have this. You're not lucky. You have worked your backside off with the inner parenting work. You've done so much. Like if I was to nominate the biggest 4 people within Geek outside of myself, you'd be right up there,
Oh,
my friend. So, you know, you've done the work. It's not luck. There's no luck involved. You have worked so hard. So you've earned that. You've earned the
yeah.
right to hear what your inner children have to say and to be able to attend to them. You've done that. Don't forget that.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Part of me is very happy to hear that, like, wow, and part of me is like, oh my God. Very
What's the
geeky
oh my
coming
God
out.
part?
I think that's
Geeky.
that 10-year-old just like, oh man. So many, I could have been obsessed with so many other things, but that's that 10-year-old coming
It's
out.
true. It's true. I mean, you know, I had an alcoholic father. Like I'm literally like 2 steps away from having turned into an alcoholic myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, you kind of pick your poison. I'm thinking personal development's pretty good poison.
Yeah, and personal development that's actually really effective. That's why I think I'm so obsessed with this work, because I can see, okay, I've been doing this for 3 years and it's made all this
Yeah.
improvements with myself. What's it
Yeah.
going to look like when I'm doing it for 10 years or 20
Right.
years or
Right.
another 30 years? If the voices keep coming in, you keep hearing different things once you're once you're comfortable with these parts, you're like, oh, I never thought about that before. That's
Yeah.
an interesting
Yeah.
way to describe that. It's like, and then that intuition starts going off of like, oh,
Yeah.
where's that voice coming from? What does this mean? Okay, what else
Yeah.
could I do with this? What are
Yeah.
what are ways what are ways to deal with this? And it just is like,
Yeah.
it's also like
And
joy
then
for the intuition.
oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And of course the different flavors, you know, when you start to connect with your shadow 4 people within. It's really, the course should really be the 8 people within. But but it's like there's
Yeah.
there, beautifully there's no end to it. And but I do want to say to everyone who's tuning in that you know, Amelia, you are at the stage of your personal development because you've done the work. Just understanding something doesn't mean you've learned it. You have to actually practice it to learn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, give yourself a big pat on the back there and just say, you know what, I did well with that, and hope to continue
Yeah. Thank
to
you for
do well
that.
with it.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no, for sure. I think we should wrap it up at that. I think that's a good place to leave it. Did you have any kind of final comments before we? Yeah.
Nope. Not from my
Okay.
end.
So this has been such a treat for me. I really enjoyed this, and I'd love to hear if you've enjoyed it too. Whoever is tuning in, Amelia, have you enjoyed your time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've always enjoyed talking to you. Especially this is nice in a more casual setting, just kind of having a
Yeah.
conversation. So that
Yeah.
has been nice.
What's your main takeaway from today?
I think my main takeaway from today is one, the orthopedic massage. I wrote that down because I want to check out that and see if there's any in Kansas City here where I live.
Yeah.
I think it's also that I need to really recognize the amount of work that I've done, because sometimes I get so
Yes.
tunnel visioned with things that I don't really see
Yeah.
the results that I've done and all the hard work. What about you, Merja?
My big takeaway is just, you know, taking that step back and reflecting on what the year has been really like, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's been plenty of everything,
Yeah.
everything above. And just taking the moment to really allow that to be what it is, because it's so hard. It's so easy to try and control it, and we can't control it. So that's my biggest takeaway. And listeners, I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaway is from today's session. And also, I want to say a big thank you, everyone, for your time. I'd love to hear if this was a helpful conversation. But again, join us for our next episode of Real Conversations with INFJs and INFPs. We will be putting that out sometime in the near future. No promises. If you like what you heard, let us know, because we want to make sure that we're, not just, we don't need to hear the sound of our own voices. We're good. But if this is helpful, I'd love to hear that, and so that we can keep going. And if you like what you heard, I'd love you to share this episode with a friend or a colleague or a family member that you think that might need to hear it. So maybe you're an INFJ or an INFP and you have a family member, partner, child, parent who doesn't quite get you. And if what we've discussed today has actually represented you in some way, or there's a topic that you want to take away and start a conversation, maybe you want to share this with them. Or if you know a fellow INF type, then by all means, please share it. It would be an honor for you to share our work with others, for sure. So any questions, you can reach us, both of us, at desk@INFX Project. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you for tuning in.